Sally. Sally recently graduated from high school. She lives at home with her mom. Sally's parents divorced when she was just a little girl. Sally and her mom have always had enough to get by, living on just the bare necessities. Sally has just been accepted into chemical engineering at the University of Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, I was working. I had to work every summer. I couldn't work during the year because film was, a 60-hour-a-week job basically. It was involved. But yeah, no, I mean, I worked every summer, and I did have a job first year, which was 12 hours a day on a Saturday. And even then, by the time the end of second semester rolled around, I was, walking for an hour because I couldn't afford the bus and doing it that way. So absolutely, it feels like that's kind of their minimum plan. You know what I mean? Like they charge me for my debt. They charge me $183 a month, which is not a whole lot. And I called them a year or so ago. I've been out for 2 or 3 now, and just asking what I can do to sort of get the ball rolling quicker. And they go, oh well, if we increase your monthly payments by $13 or $17 a month, that could knock 2 years off of the entire repayment plan, and you'll get charged less interest. You'll get all of this, but no one. I mean, there's no exit interview. You know what I mean? Like, they don't sit you down at the end of everything, and they just expect you to know about all these little loopholes that will save you all this money. I mean, for the most part, if you can't find a job, you know what I mean? Like, life is expensive. So trying to live on your own, on top of having to pay for this OSAP for 10 years, it's near impossible. But with just, I could pay $50 more a month and I'll be out in like 6 years, as opposed to the 10 they would just keep me on. So. But more information, absolutely. I mean, those bursaries, they're kind of out there, but I mean, I don't know if it even goes back to, if you take it back to a high school thing where, you know what I mean, like if you're applying for college or university, whether or not, a counselor could say, in your situation, here are all of your options. So I don't know where that will come from other than somebody searching out for it. But yeah, especially on the repayment side of it all, though, more information on realistic, goals and some way that you can basically calculate your income, you know what I mean? See how much you can afford to pay as opposed to their minimum payments, which just rope you in for so long. So, it's more information, absolutely.
Sally's estimated tuition cost is $10,902. When you add compulsory fees, books, supplies, travel and living expenses to this amount, the total cost is $17,713. Unfortunately, Sally and her mom can't afford to pay for her university education alone. Sally's only option is to get help from OSAP.
OSAP? It's an online application. Websites posted everywhere, osap.gov.on.ca. Complete your application, submit it, print your consents and declaration forms, sign those, and get those with whatever necessary supporting documentation is required to the financial aid office of the school you attend. From that point, it takes about 4 to 6 weeks for the staff in the financial aid office to process or update and validate and get everything entered on that application. And then, if it's immediately prior to the start of the study period, the loan will print or the funds will print. If, for example, somebody were to apply in the summer for a program that starts in January, it stays in a holding pattern until around this time of year, and then it goes into a queue to be printed for January funds. Typically, it would be something like proof of your children's birth for people who are married or single parents. things like proof of employment insurance for people whose source of income is employment insurance prior to coming to school. If they are recent immigrants, proof of their citizenship status or their permanent resident card. That's another typical piece that's asked for. In cases where students may not have succeeded well academically previously while at post-secondary school, they may be asked to provide a letter to explain what happened to cause them to have poor academic progression and outline what their goals are for the coming year. On occasion, if we have a student who has tried a few different programs at the first year, first semester level at one or variety of institutions, they will also be asked to provide supporting documentation to explain or to show that they are showing academic progression. Those are relatively typical types of supporting documentation. Some of the most common ones, the most common one I can think of off the top of my head is a student who may be 18 years old, and because of their family culture or because of the age that they assume that they are independent. From the province of Ontario and the federal government's perspective, a student is not independent until they've been out of high school for 4 years, or until they've been out of high school for 2 years working full-time or part-time during those 2 years. If you're right out of high school, you are a dependent student and your parents' information is required.
According to the OSAP aid estimator, Sally is eligible for $10,466 in funding. This is not nearly enough to cover the total cost of Sally's university education for the year. Although her mom only makes an annual income of $26,000 and Sally will have saved $5,000 prior to starting university, OSAP expects them to be able to pay 40% of the cost on their own. The amount they need to put forward is $7,247.
Basically, that's when I was surprised by the amount I did. To pay up front for your living expenses, which was about $6,000. I'm like, I don't have $6,000. OSAP's not giving it to me. So I ended up having to go to the bank and take out a $5,000 line of credit to help to pay for that, as well as just the costs that go along with the program. There's a lot. If you're filming something, you got to buy everything that goes in it, basically. And then what happened is, in the summer after I finished that year, I went to the OSAP office and said, hey, I had a lot of trouble last year financially. I don't want that to happen again. So what can you do? And they happened to look at my file and go, oh, there's a note on here that says that a financial officer should have contacted you because you should have gotten additional probably $3,000. And I just looked at it and I'm like, well, can we do it now? And there was no way that was going to happen. But I was shocked because that would have saved me a lot. I mean, having a line of credit, it's just something that's always there. It's not paid off yet. It's bringing down my credit rating. And it's unfortunate that I guess either that a financial officer hadn't picked up the phone and called me, or that OSAP hadn't informed me up front that I was eligible for more money. It does, because I mean, there are people who won't go to college because they say, oh, you know, my parents, this is happening with my boyfriend right now. His parents are saying, well, we might not be able to pay for your college, but they make enough where he wouldn't get anything from OSAP. It's just the fact that people might not be able to get the money to go and get an education because there's a box on a form is really, the appeal process itself to actually appeal that idea that, you know, you were living with your parents but you're paying rent. It's a ridiculous process. I'm in the middle of it right now for this year, and there's just papers upon papers upon papers. It should be easier taken into account during the application process, for sure. I worry, but I keep it kind of deep. I bury it under things, because the idea, just sitting around and thinking, wow, I might graduate with $40,000 to pay back, what is it, I think 6 months after I graduate, is a bit too much. I mean, I'm sure my program, they say it's a high employment rate right now. I'm already in the industry in a lot of ways. I already have my connections. I think I'll be okay, but it's one of those things that if the economy crashes again, you're just gonna, it's not gonna be good. So there's a worry there, but I try not to think about it.
Together, Sally and her mom have a combined annual net income of about $28,000 after taxes, deducting expenses such as rent, food, transportation and phone bills, as well as minusing the amount for Sally's education, Sally and her mom are left with $553 for the year. Keep in mind, this is without taking into account necessary personal items, visits to the doctor or dentist, or if Sally's mom becomes injured and cannot work for a period of time, resulting in no pay. It is unrealistic to say no surprise costs will arise, and with that being said, even with the help from OSAP, Sally may not be able to afford to go to university and miss out on an important educational experience that everyone deserves.